So I recently had to deal with something no parent should ever have to say out loud. 3 HOA enforcers showed up on my doorstep to take my son away. And the reason? A violation of HOA custody compliance. Our neighbor was grinning like she just saved my son's life. Funny thing is, the only thing that got taken away was them, in an ambulance. Let me start from the beginning. Before we dive in, let me know where you're listening from today. If your HOA sends 3 guys in tactical gear to talk about paperwork, you're either living in the most aggressively managed neighborhood in America, or you're about to have a really bad morning. Guess which one I got? I hadn't even finished pouring my coffee when the knock came. 3 loud hits. Flat-palmed. Too heavy to be neighborly. It wasn't the kind of knock you answer barefoot. It was the kind of knock that made me wish I still kept a shotgun by the door. I opened it slow. 3 men. Not mailmen. Not meter readers. Not delivery drivers with a broken GPS and a fragile box of regret. No, these guys wore matte black tactical vests, reinforced boots, and knockoff comms clipped to their shoulders, like they wanted to look official without breaking the law. The only thing missing were the fake mustaches and a sign that said, "Not cops." Please believe us. The tall one in front stepped forward like I was expecting him. He had buzzed hair, wraparound sunglasses, and the smug confidence of a man who practices arrest poses in the mirror. "Mr. Stratton," he said, scanning a clipboard like it held nuclear launch codes. "We're here for a scheduled compliance review under HOA custody ordinance." I blinked once. Didn't answer. Just looked him up and down like I was trying to figure out if this was a prank or an exceptionally misguided military-themed podcast recording. The other 2 stood behind him. One stocky, arms crossed like a bouncer in a bad mood. The third one, young, lanky, and clearly not built for tactical work, kept shifting on his feet like he had something uncomfortable lodged in his conscience. They didn't look nervous. They looked prepared. Too prepared for a paperwork check. "We've received a behavioral concern about minor 714, under your care," the tall one continued. He didn't look at me when he said it. He looked past me, into the house, into the hallway, toward Jason's room. I stepped forward and closed the door behind me, keeping myself between them and the threshold. "You just said a lot of words," I told him. None of them made any legal sense. He flipped a page. Under Article 4.7c, the HOA retains the right to conduct minor safety compliance evaluations if a resident has been flagged as high risk. He looked up. "We're here to evaluate Jason's living conditions." "Jason's not a filing cabinet," I said, "and he sure as hell isn't subject to whatever spreadsheet fantasy you're working with." Stocky crossed his arms tighter. Clipboard guy didn't flinch. "Non-cooperation will be logged," he said, like he was issuing a parking ticket. Across the street, Karen stood near her flower bed, sipping something from a stainless steel tumbler. She was dressed like a tennis coach who lost the will to exercise. Her eyes were locked on us. She didn't blink. She just smiled. Then she waved and mouthed, "It's for the best." I wanted to break something. The young enforcer cleared his throat. "We can escalate this through proper channels, but our recommendation was to start with a non-invasive approach." "That's what this is?" I asked, stepping off the porch toward them. 3 guys in tactical vests knocking on a vet's door at sunrise, you call that non-invasive? Buzzcut didn't move. Didn't blink. "Are you refusing inspection?" he asked. "I'm refusing something," I said, still figuring out the word for it. He opened his mouth to speak again but paused. That's when he noticed my posture had shifted. Feet shoulder-width apart. Hands loose at my sides. Head tilted just enough to gauge distance between me and the clipboard. He knew if he made one wrong move, I'd put him down faster than he could say compliance. The silence dragged out. Karen kept filming. My coffee sat cold behind the door. Finally, Buzzcut said, "We'll report non-cooperation and initiate Phase 2. Thank you for your time." They turned and walked. Not rushed. Not panicked. Just efficient, like they'd done this before. I watched them reach their car. An unmarked black SUV with tinted windows and no license plate on the front. Phase 2 stuck in my brain like a splinter. Behind me, I heard the floorboards creak, Jason, barefoot, still in pajamas, standing halfway down the stairs. He didn't ask what happened. He just looked at me, eyes wide, breathing shallow. He'd heard enough. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded, didn't speak. I walked outside, stood where the enforcers had stood. My foot bumped something, a sheet of paper, folded once, lightly creased, left on purpose. I picked it up. Jason's name, a date, and 2 words stamped in red, Phase 2 approved. They came with smiles, a clipboard, and tactical gear they barely knew how to use. But now I knew something I didn't before: they weren't bluffing. They were rehearsing. And next time, there wouldn't be a warning. The 4th citation came duct-taped to our front door. Not slid in the mailbox. Not tucked under a welcome mat. Duct-taped. Jason found it first. He just stood there, staring at it until I walked up and peeled it off the wood. Violation, visual disruption. Front yard neglect. What was the crime? Jason's bike, left on the lawn for 2 hours after school. $75. Below that, in faint gray ink, persistent visual disruption may trigger compliance monitoring per Article 4.7c. I read that line twice. Then once more. I didn't tear the notice up. I didn't curse. I just folded it once, placed it on the counter, and made coffee like my fingers weren't shaking. At breakfast, Jason picked at cereal like it had wronged him personally. Sarah stared at the wall. No one said anything. Finally, I asked, "You want me to take you in today?" Jason shrugged, then muttered, "I didn't do anything." Not, "It's fine." Not, "I've got it." Just, "I didn't do anything." And that's when I realized it. He wasn't scared of getting in trouble. He was scared they might be right. Nate walked in 5 minutes later holding 2 Red Bulls and a flash drive like he'd just stolen nuclear codes. "Okay, I did something," he said before I could even ask. Technically legal. Morally shady. But necessary. He spun his laptop around and opened a folder labeled Project Dove, Willow Glen. Inside, timestamps, photos, reports. 32 families. Every one of them with a flag, a child, a citation, a single parent, a veterinarian. And at the top of the list, me. Jason's profile was tagged 714, stability monitoring required. Mine said, Jason Stratton. Unstable/volatility risk. Prior combat. Resistance to mediation. Surveillance authorized. The photos punched me in the gut. Jason leaving school. Me pacing in the driveway. A still shot of Jason in our backyard, outlined in red. Jason's fingers curled around the table edge. Sarah said nothing, just leaned closer. Her jaw was locked tight. Jason pointed at the screen. "They think I'm not safe here." I didn't answer. Didn't move. Then came the real hit. "They think I'm not safe because of you." Sarah's eyes flicked toward me, sharp, concerned. Not blaming, but searching. And me? I had no defense. Because this wasn't about what I had done. It was about who I used to be. Nate cleared his throat. "This isn't just a watch list," he said. "This is pre-clearance. These are prep files. They're building cases before removals." "How long?" Sarah asked. "Months," Nate said. Karen didn't start this. But she's feeding them. Actively. I stood up. Don't, Sarah said instantly. You're not ready. I'm not going over there angry. You are angry. And she's counting on me not to act. I said, that ends today. Jason spoke up. I want to go with you. No, I said, fast. You stay here. He didn't argue. But the way his shoulders dropped, that told me everything. Karen was in her front garden again. Always pruning. Always smiling. She had a Bluetooth headset in one ear and lemonade in her hand like she was recording a podcast for psychopaths. When she saw me, she didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Just smiled wider. John, she said. Did you see the latest newsletter? Pickleball's back. You're flagging my son, I said, and surveilling my house. I don't flag anyone, she replied. That's what the system's for. I just observe patterns. You filed photos. I submitted evidence, she said. It's my duty to report when children may be in unsafe conditions. Her words were sweet software. Practiced, but every syllable was a knife. You mean kids with veteran parents? I said. Karen's smile didn't fade. She just sipped her lemonade. You'd be amazed how often that's the overlap. I stepped closer. You think you're protecting the neighborhood, but all you're doing is abusing a system no one's watching. I am watching, she said. That's the point. There it was. Not a slip. Not a mistake. Just a woman who thought oversight was ownership. She reached into her apron. Almost forgot. She held out an envelope. No return address. Just a sticker on the flap, Safe Start Family Oversight Division. Came to my house by mistake, she said. Figured you'd want it. I didn't take it. Not right away. She leaned in, just slightly. Take a break, John. You're spiraling. And Jason doesn't need chaos in his environment. That was the blow. She said it with the warmth of a friend, like she was offering a casserole. But it hit harder than any punch I'd taken overseas. Because I knew now, this wasn't just a Karen on a power trip. This was systemic. Intentional. Weaponized neighborliness. She turned and went back to her roses, like she hadn't just dropped a bomb on my life. Envelope still dangling between two fingers. And I stood there, jaw tight, every cell in my body screaming not to move. Not yet. Because I wasn't just going to fight her. I was going to dismantle the system that let her exist. Jason was gone. His bed was empty. Back door cracked open. Side gate swinging in the wind. No note. No shoes by the door. No phone. Just a quiet house and the cold slam of realization hitting my chest like a freight train. Then I saw the text on the kitchen counter. His phone, unlocked. One line on the screen. Meet me, it's urgent, Lex. And in the distance, a stifled yell. Not loud. Not long. Just enough to freeze the air around me. I moved fast. The night was heavy. No moon. 2 flickering streetlights and the kind of quiet that felt manufactured. I crouched low, cutting across hedges, staying in shadow. Then I saw them. Black SUV. Rear doors open. Jason, struggling. 2 men dragging him by the arms. One standing lookout, scanning a tablet. No clipboard. No hesitation. Tactical gear, same as before. But this time, they weren't asking. I didn't shout. I stalked. Closed the distance like a ghost. The lookout turned, I struck. 1 punch. Windpipe. Down. The taller abductor turned, I grabbed, pivoted, slammed him into the SUV. Metal dented. His spine folded. Jason twisted, kicked one in the shin, gave me a window. I dropped to a knee, hooked his leg, twisted hard. Population. He screamed like a kicked dog. Jason pulled free, scrambling back. 3 men down. I grabbed the tallest by the collar, pinned him to the car. Who sent you? No answer. He looked left. I followed his gaze. Tablet on the dash. Red blinking dot. 714A, asset transfer in progress. I zip-tied his wrists behind him and whispered. Try again. This time with details. Still nothing. Cowards like him never talk without permission. Sirens in the distance. Lights flicking on. Neighbors waking. Karen, already standing on her lawn like a director watching a scene unfold exactly as planned. Still filming. Still smiling. Cops pulled up. 2 cruisers and a watch commander. Step away from them, one officer shouted. I complied. Arms up. Calm voice. They tried to abduct my son. The officer looked from me to Jason, then to the zip-tied pile of meat at my feet. One ran to the SUV. 30 seconds later, he came back pale. There's a manifest, he said. GPS routes. Labels. Safe Start logo stamped on every page. Jason stared at him, then at me. He said, low. So they were really going to do it. He wasn't asking. Karen stepped forward. Not scared. Not smug. Just calm. You always make things worse, John, she said. This could have been a peaceful resolution. I turned slowly. You ordered this? I recommended escalation. They acted independently. Jason's voice cracked. You think this is protecting me? Karen looked at him like a disappointed aunt. Jason, sometimes safety means separation. That's when Jason snapped. You think he's the problem? You don't know what he's done to keep me safe. Karen didn't flinch. She looked at the cops. This is what I meant. Emotional volatility. Sudden aggression. One officer shifted. I saw the flicker in his eyes, he was hesitating. Until Jason stepped forward and said, loud enough for the crowd. She sent people to take me. You saw it. Everyone did. That sealed it. The cops detained the men. Karen, she just turned and said over her shoulder. You're not well, John. That's what worries me most. We drove home in silence. Jason stared straight ahead. Then, soft. Did you hurt people like that before? I nodded once. Worse. He nodded back. Didn't speak the rest of the night. I stayed up, watching the front door. Didn't sleep. Didn't move. Just read the tablet's hidden folder. Phase 3, Re-Education Protocol. Guardian, Stratton. My name. My photo. And a field labeled. Time of collection, to be determined. This is no longer about saving my son. Now they're coming for me. You ever relive a moment so often it rewires your body? That's what Fallujah did to me. One warehouse. One girl. 1 second too slow. My team used to call me stat. Short for static. Because I didn't move unless I had to. Didn't react. Didn't flinch. They thought it was cool. They didn't know it was survival. We were clearing an alleged weapons drop. Intel said the building was cold. But when we breached, wrong. 5 targets. One fired first, hit our comms guy in the hip. Everything turned red. We moved fast. 2 down in under a minute. One retreated north. That's when I heard it. Not a gun. Not a man. A scream. Soft. High-pitched. Not angry. Scared. I turned and found her. 9 years old, maybe less. Hands over her ears. Tears on her cheeks. No weapon. No vest. She wasn't part of this. She was caught in it. I don't know if she was a relative. A hostage. A shield. All I know is, she looked at me like I was the monster in her closet. And then she ran. Out the side exit. Toward our evac perimeter. I could have stopped her. My hand twitched. My feet didn't move. Because for one breath, just one, I saw Jason's face. Same eyes. Same fear. Same way he used to freeze up in a crowded store. And in that moment, I couldn't pull the trigger. Couldn't run. Couldn't do anything. She ran straight into gunfire. The report said, unidentified civilian. The after-action review called it, regrettable. No one blamed me. But I did. Because I could have grabbed her. Carried her. Shielded her. But I didn't. That memory came back last night. Not in a dream. In the kitchen. Jason came downstairs past midnight. Silent. Pale. Got a glass of water like he was trying not to wake ghosts. He didn't know I was watching from the hallway. Didn't see my grip on the wall. Because I was shaking. Sarah stepped beside me. Soft voice. You scared him. I didn't answer. He's alive. That's not the same thing. Her voice was calm. Too calm. You think you're protecting him. But he's learning how to disappear inside himself. Just like you do. That one landed hard. Because it wasn't about discipline. It was about trauma. And suddenly, I couldn't breathe. I sat down with Nate's files. Everything he pulled from the Safe Start system. They didn't just have citations and footage. They had me. Therapist records. Private VA session logs. A psych eval from 4 years ago. I barely remember filling it out. And then I saw it. A direct quote from a session. Some nights I feel more dangerous to myself than to anyone else. They logged it under. Flagged for aggression. Emotional instability. Potential self-harm risk. Guardian evaluation recommended. Subject, Stratton. Minor, 714A. They used my lowest moment as their justification to remove my son. I stared at the screen. At the timestamp. I remembered that night. I hadn't slept in 3 days. Hadn't seen Jason in 5. Was coming off a meds trial that scrambled my head. I wasn't broken. I was rebuilding. And they used that moment like it was a confession. Sarah came down an hour later. Found me still staring at the screen. You okay? She asked. No. She sat down next to me. Didn't speak. Didn't touch me. Just sat. Be dragging out a body bag right now. That landed. The cops backed off, told me to sit, said the men would be processed. I knew what that meant, paperwork, spin, delay, but they didn't arrest me. And that meant more than any word could have. I thought that was it. Until I heard him, Jason, from the hallway. Quiet. You didn't sleep either. I looked over. He stood in the dark, hands in the sleeves of his hoodie, eyes full of something I didn't know how to name, shame, love, fear. All of it. I nodded. You don't have to go to war for me. I paused, then said, it's not just for you. He nodded, walked back upstairs, and I finally stood. Because I had work to do. They called me dangerous, unstable, unfit. But they forgot something critical. I've spent my whole life controlling the monster inside me. Now I'm going to let it loose. Jason screamed, not loud, just sharp enough to slice through the house like a razor. Then the sound of a body hitting drywall. I was off the couch in 2 seconds. No shoes. No weapon. Just instinct. I hit the hallway at full sprint, just in time to see a man in full black tactical gear dragging Jason by the collar. Jason was kicking, twisting, arms flailing. Not crying. Not yelling. Fighting. But he was losing. The man barked into a headset, 714A secured, Guardian status unclear. Not tonight. I didn't wait. I hit the first one mid-sprint, shoulder to ribs. Took him down hard. Jason rolled away. I landed 2 punches, center mass, then elbowed him in the throat. He gasped once. Then nothing. Second guy came from the kitchen, knife in hand. I kicked the chair into his legs. He stumbled. I tackled him over the table. Glass shattered. Blood on the floor. The house moaned like it was coming apart. He slashed, grazed my arm. I grabbed the coffee pot and smashed it across his face. He crumpled. Sarah screamed upstairs. I heard her running. Then came the third one. Big. Calm. Efficient. He didn't run, he advanced. Like he was used to finishing fights someone else started. He got 1 punch in, straight to my ribs. Hurt like hell. I countered with a headbutt. We both stumbled. Then I saw it. He had Jason's photo on his chest rig. Printed. Laminated. Like a hunting tag. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed the man by the collar, yanked him forward, and drove him through the wall. Plaster rained down. Sarah screamed again. Jason yelled my name. I didn't stop. 1 punch. 2. 3. Then I caught myself. He was down. Breathing, barely. And I was still punching. I stood. Stared at my fists. Covered in blood. Sarah ran in. Pulled Jason into her arms. He was shaking. Eyes locked on me, not like I was a hero. Like I was something he didn't recognize. I grabbed a zip tie. Secured the one still breathing. The other 2, out cold. 1 twitching. 1 not. I didn't check pulse. I didn't care. I found the phone clipped to the third guy's belt. Unlocked it with his fingerprint. Inside, exfil schedule. Guardian interference likely. With a timestamp, 3 a.m. They came for us. At the scheduled time. Then came the worst part. Jason looked at me, voice barely audible. You said we were safe. No judgment. Just pain. And disappointment. And fear. I opened my mouth to respond, but I had no answer. Cops arrived 15 minutes later. Not local. City. 2 squad cars. 1 cruiser. Plain clothes. Professional, but twitchy. They saw the bodies. Saw the broken furniture. Saw the bruises on my knuckles. The taller one stepped forward. Sir, step back from the men. They broke in, I said. Attempted abduction. Again. He glanced at Jason, then at the blood on the wall. You do this yourself? I didn't blink. Yes. He reached for his cuffs. You're going to have to come with us. Check the phone, I said, tossing it to him. He caught it. Scrolled. Stopped. Looked up. What is this? Proof. He read aloud. Guardian removal scheduled. Phase 3 active. What the hell does that mean? It means they didn't come to scare me. They came to erase me. Jason stepped forward. It's all true. That made them stop. Really stop. Jason's voice was flat. Final. They were taking me. He stopped them. Sarah added, and if he hadn't, you'd. Was enough. Later, I scanned the phone's files again. Found the folder. Not just us. Dozens of families, all marked Phase 3. All with a time. A location. A parent. And next to our name, status, incomplete. Cause, guardian resistance. Then I found the call log. Outgoing. To a familiar number. I played the audio file. Karen's voice. Proceed. Keep it clean. He won't fight, he's exhausted. They all crack eventually. I stared at the screen. My hand shook. Then I tapped edit. Deleted the word guardian from the file name. Replaced it with Stratton. Father. Still here. Saved. I turned off the lights. Locked every door. Sat by the window with a cold compress on my hand. Jason came downstairs an hour later. Didn't say anything. Just looked at me. And for the first time in days, he didn't flinch. Tomorrow morning, I'm walking into the HOA board meeting with the phone. The files. The evidence. And Karen. She won't be hiding behind procedure anymore. Because I'm not coming to ask questions. I'm coming to end her reign. You can fight a man who breaks into your home. You can stop him with your fists. You can make him bleed. But what do you do with the woman who sent him? And still shows up smiling at the next HOA meeting? That's Karen. She didn't kick my door in. She paid someone else to. And now she was sitting in a folding chair under fluorescent lights like nothing happened. Same pearls. Same clipboard. Same smirk. But today, she wasn't chairing a meeting. She was about to preside over her own collapse. Willow Glen's HOA board meetings were normally sleepy affairs. Mostly retirees pretending to care about hedge height. The room always smelled like weak coffee and mild resentment. But today, it was packed. Neighbors. Journalists. People who hadn't shown up in years. And at the front of the room, 7 board members. Seated like a suburban Supreme Court. Karen sat center. Beige pantsuit. Lipstick perfect. Her smile said this is under control. Spoiler, it wasn't. Mr. Stratton, she said with a saccharine tone. We weren't expecting you. I didn't respond. I just walked up to the podium and placed my phone on the mic stand. Then I pressed play. Proceed. Keep it clean. He won't fight, he's exhausted. They all crack eventually. Her voice. Her orders. The silence after that clip wasn't awkward, it was surgical. People didn't cough. They didn't whisper. They just looked at her. That's from the body cam of a man who broke into my home, I said. At 3 a.m. Who zip-tied my son and was authorized by this board's chairwoman to remove me from the premises. Permanently. Karen blinked once. Then smiled. That recording is clearly taken out of context. Which part? I cut in. Proceed. Remove. They all crack eventually. Dennis Withers, the vice chair, tried to step in. Mr. Stratton, we're not here to litigate. Then resign, I said. Because what I'm about to read isn't hearsay. It's data. Your votes. Your emails. Your signatures. And your funding links to a black badge contractor called Safe Start. A shell company with no published oversight. And a very real body count. He shut up. Karen's jaw stayed tight. I dropped a flash drive on the board table like a grenade. Everything you need to verify the existence of Project Dove. Your little family wellness pilot. That's really just a legal framework for targeted removals. 33 flagged homes. Dozens of kids. All under surveillance. All scored for emotional instability risk. This is slander, Karen said. You're not well, John. You never have been. She turned to the audience. This man has a history of violence. Of mental strain. There's a reason he's been flagged for intervention. And frankly, maybe it's time someone looked into his capacity. That was her swing. Weaponizing the language of wellness. Make me look unstable. Unfit. Dangerous. So when I fall, people cheer. But the problem was. I brought receipts. I clicked again. Another clip played. Accelerate Phase 3. Frame it as neighborhood safety. No one questions anything if you say the word child. Dennis stared down at his desk. Then someone in the audience stood up. Old man. Military jacket. My daughter got one of. Those letters said my granddaughter was potentially at risk. She's 6 years old, Karen. You sent that. Karen started to answer, but another voice cut her off. Mrs. Delaney. Old. Fierce. Pink cardigan of doom. I second his motion. Someone else stood. Third. And just like that, it spread. Voices raised. Hands went up. Phones recorded. Karen stood. Didn't slam anything. Didn't yell. She just stood. Staring at me like I'd undone a decades-long plan with one flash drive. And maybe I had. But before the vote, she fired one last shot. You're not saving your son, John. You're turning him into you. I didn't answer. Because she wasn't wrong. And that scared me more than anything. The board voted. Karen was suspended. Dennis stepped down 5 minutes later. An emergency audit was ordered. Safe Start's funding was frozen. Police were notified. I walked out into the sunlight with my file in one hand and the whole damn neighborhood watching me. Sarah leaned on the car. Jason was in the back seat, window cracked, hoodie up. Watching me like he wasn't sure who I was anymore. When I opened the door, he didn't speak right away. Just studied me. Not as a kid. As a witness. Did she fall? I looked at him. Smiled. Paused. She got pushed. He didn't smile back. He just nodded, like he'd expected it. That night, my phone rang. Blocked number. I answered. No one spoke at first. Just breathing. Then a voice I didn't recognize. Low. Measured. Phase 4 wasn't hers to approve. Silence. Then. We don't clean up messes. We bury them. Click. Line dead. I stared at the wall. At the photo of Jason from when he was 6. Missing teeth, birthday hat, chocolate frosting on his face. The last time I thought I could keep him safe by just loving him. Now that wasn't enough. Karen was a pawn. And I just kicked the board over. But whoever was playing her? They still had the rest of the pieces. And I was done playing. Jason was asleep on the couch. Not in his bed. Not upstairs. Down here. Near the door. Still wearing his hoodie. Shoes on. Like he didn't trust the house to stay standing. I sat in the chair across from him. Didn't touch him. Didn't speak. Just watched. Every 5 minutes his hands would twitch. Like he was still fighting something in his sleep. That's when I knew. Karen was never the boss. She was just the bait. The phone call from the night before still rang in my head. Phase 4 wasn't hers to approve. We don't clean up messes. We bury them. They weren't scared of exposure. They were scared of me still breathing. The next morning, I drove 2 towns over. To a warehouse Nate had converted into a digital war room. It was low rent. Off-grid. And surrounded by busted vending machines and a landscaping company that never opened before noon. Inside. 3 monitors. Backup generators. Faraday-shielded routers. And a smell like energy drinks and paranoia. Nate was already there. Laptop open. Hoodie up. Eyes locked on code. Your license plate got pinged again, he said, without looking up. Twice in Midtown. Once near the freeway ramp. Traffic cams? Law enforcement? Nope. Private. Geo-flagged systems. They're pulling thermal signatures now. He turned the laptop toward me. Red outlines of me and Jason. Caught outside our house. Pixelated. Zoomed. Labeled. They're tracking your heat, man. Not your phone. Not your car. You. I nodded. Let's dig. We started with Safe Start. But Safe Start didn't exist. The number routed to a Connecticut law firm with no attorneys listed. That firm shared metadata with a Luxembourg shell company claiming to offer AI-powered civic innovation. That company was owned by a private holding group in Dubai. Their servers were filled with anonymized logs. Of civilian movements. Financial behaviors. And buried deep. Biometric files. Labeled Observer Cohort 4. Inside the folder. United States. Photos. Heat signatures. Psych flags. Jason. Sleep patterns. My post-deployment evaluations. They weren't running security. They were running behavioral simulations. How would people like me? Military. Disciplined. Emotionally damaged. Respond to slow pressure. To humiliation. To the threat of removal. What would happen when you pushed just hard enough to spark violence and then documented the fallout? I sat back, Nate leaned forward. Dude, this isn't surveillance. It's a stress test. I said, we trace the funding, shell nonprofits, community wellness grants, housing trust diversions, over $2.3 million routed through fronts like American Youth Uplift, the Suburban Equity Foundation, the Harmony Consortium, all fake, all washing money for one entity, UNAS, a privatized risk analytics firm contracted by multiple U.S. federal sub-agencies for foreign predictive modeling. They just decided to bring it home. They weren't looking for criminals, they were looking for future threats. They weren't trying to stop crime, they were testing if they could pre-program guilt. Then we found the kill doc, encrypted, tough but not impossible. Nate cracked it. One file, text only. Stratton, John. Observer 714, profile, volatility risk, prior military trauma, emotional stiffness, family unit, 1 minor, 1 spouse. Mission report, resistance level exceeded threshold. Phase 4 authorized. Objective, neutralization preferable to intervention. Status, pending. Clean team approval. I read it twice, then said nothing for a full minute. Nate, I said. They want you gone, man. And not in court. I didn't blink. They want a body. Sarah called at 5:12 p.m. Her voice was calm, but her words cracked something in me. He's gone. What? Jason. He left a note. Didn't say where. I found him behind the school in the old batting cage, sitting on the concrete. Hoodie up, no backpack, no phone. Just him. I didn't run. He said, I know, I just needed a break from the cameras, the whispers, from you. I sat beside him. I get it. He looked at me, not mad, not scared, just tired. You taught me how to fight, then told me to run. Which is it? I didn't answer. I didn't know. He looked away. They want you, not me. That's not true. Yeah, it is. They want you out of the way so they can rebuild me. But if I break now, it's not them who did it. He looked at me again, dead in the eye. It'll be you. That hit harder than any fist I'd ever taken. Back at Nate's, I told them everything. Jason listened, Sarah held his hand. I didn't lie. I didn't soften it when I got to Unitas. Sarah didn't blink. So what do we do? I said, we go public. Nate shook his head. Nope, not yet. They'll wipe it. All of it. We need a living thread. You mean a witness? I mean someone inside. Then he showed me a still frame from a security cam, Phoenix location, grainy but clear. Dennis HOA, vice chair. The man who resigned for integrity, walking into a Unitas satellite office with a pass badge. Nate ran him through their escalation logs. Dennis was never flagged. Never questioned. Never evaluated. Not even listed as a variable. He turned to me. He was always part of the system. Jason stepped forward. So what now? I stood up. Now we find him, and we make him talk. I walked to the drawer, opened the lockbox, took out the old recorder I used in combat debriefings, checked the battery, still full. I don't need a camera crew. I don't need a judge. I need 10 minutes in a room with Dennis and a story the whole world can't ignore. We found Dennis in a downtown parking structure, 3 levels underground, not hiding. Just parked like he was waiting for someone, maybe like this was already planned. But when he saw me, he didn't flinch. Didn't reach for his keys. Didn't ask what I wanted. He just said, "You're not supposed to be here." I said, "Neither are you." We brought him to the warehouse. Nate had blacked out the Wi-Fi, scrubbed the metadata, no signal in or out, no timestamps, no chance for Dennis to text his backup, assuming he even had one. One folding chair. One bulb. One voice recorder. This wasn't revenge. It was preservation. Dennis sat with his hands in his lap, wristwatch turned inward like he was still in control of time. "You don't have to do this," he said. "Do what?" "Pretend this is a war." I leaned forward. "I'm not pretending anything. And if this were a war, you'd already be in pieces." I hit record. The red light blinked. He watched it. "You want answers," he said. "But you won't believe them. Try me." Silence, long enough for me to count the hums in the bulb. Then finally, "You don't understand what Phase 4 is. Then help me understand it." He smiled, tight and pitying. "It's not about Jason anymore." I slid the flash drive across the table. "We know about Safe Start, Unitas, Project DOV. We have thermal logs. Your name's on half the approvals. They needed someone clean, so you offered our neighborhood. I offered a test bed. You offered the reactions." His hands shook slightly. Almost missed it, but I caught it. "Tell me about Phase 5. He blinked. "You're not cleared." I leaned forward. "I don't need clearance. I need the truth." He exhaled slowly, then flatly said, "They're not just tracking behavior anymore. They're modifying it." "How?" "Pressure. Proximity. They isolate a kid like Jason, flag him, then engineer the reaction of his family. They want to prove that trauma can be programmed and reversed inside a controlled HOA cell. So they create the pressure, then sell the cure. Exactly. Behavioral obedience isn't the endgame. Reinforcement, loyalty, is. He pulled something from his pocket. A laminated ID badge with the UNA's watermark. This got me into Phase 5's logistics hub. Phoenix. They call it the core. And it's not just computers. It's kids. It's influence. They're feeding Jason's data into emotional conformity modules. He's the proof of transition. That stopped me cold. So what happens to the proof once it's used? Dennis didn't answer. That was all the answer I needed. I stood and walked to the far wall, my back turned. Why'd you do it, Dennis? Because I thought order meant peace. And now I know peace built on fear doesn't last. I stepped closer. You help them take children, silence veterans, rewrite families, and I'll die for it if this ever leaks. Then give me something worth leaking. He hesitated, then nodded and started to talk. What Dennis gave us: names, internal agents, digital contractors, black badge teams assigned to Phase 4 cleanup across 14 neighborhoods. Maps, distribution zones, suburban sentiment rings, risk color coding. Jason's role. He wasn't a test subject. He was a blueprint. Every reaction from him was marked, logged, mimicked in simulations. The shift. They were preparing for Phase 6, a national rollout. When he stopped talking, the recorder had filled an hour and 7 minutes. I hit stop and stared at him. He looked older, smaller. If you go back to them, you die. If I stay with you, I die slower. I pocketed the recorder. Then stay useful. Back at home, I told Sarah everything. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She poured me a glass of water and said, "Did he say why they chose us?" Because we fight. And because we matter. Jason came downstairs later, eyes tired, voice low. So I'm their blueprint. You were. You said you were protecting me, he said. But you walked me straight into their system. That one cut deep. I nodded. Then I'll be the one to get you out. He didn't forgive me, not then. But he sat down beside me, and that was something. That night, in the garage, I opened my personal file, Stratton, John. Threat level VA4. Notes: unstable, tactical mission, fixated. I selected the whole thing and hit delete. They don't get to tell my story anymore. I loaded the full confession, renamed the file Operation Fall Line, and hit export. They used us like variables, measured us like threats. But they forgot something. I don't break. I detonate. And tomorrow, I'm lighting the fuse. I didn't sleep the night before the breach. I laid there, eyes open, every breath counting time I didn't have. Sarah paced the hallway in socks. Nate slept sitting up, one hand still on his keyboard. And Jason, he was downstairs, staring at the wall monitor, watching himself. You good? I asked. He didn't look. You said I was a template. You were. So what happens after tonight? I paused. They don't get to use you anymore. He nodded, then said, let them see me. We left at 2:42 a.m. van loaded, tools prepped. No backup. Just the four of us, a hacked blueprint, and a name, the core. A subterranean node under a disaster response shell in Phoenix. Heavily guarded, privately owned, publicly invisible. Nate had eyes on the thermal signatures. Sarah ran comms. Jason monitored the leak trigger from a safe house, his idea. You said I'm part of this, he told me. Let me be part of the end. I couldn't say no. We moved in through the water shaft. Cold, cramped, reeking of bleach and fear. 12 feet down, 3 ducts wide. It opened beneath a blind security cam, Nate's doing. We hit the ground level at 3:08. 3 guards. Non-lethal takedown. Quick, silent, precise. Sarah watched our 6 while I cracked the main corridor. The compound inside was clinical. White walls, black glass, everything humming like it knew too much. We reached the core server chamber at 3:11. Biometric lock, retina scan, vocal ID, pulse sequence. Match. Dennis's credentials worked. Of course they did. The room was a cathedral of surveillance. Rows of black towers, red lights blinking in rhythm, fans cycling through the memories of broken families. This wasn't a server room. It was a graveyard. Nate plugged in the drive. We get 80% before we go live. Anything less, they can bury it. How long? 4 minutes. I scanned the racks, followed a side hallway, found the door. Unmarked. Unlocked. Inside, footage, not just files, simulations. Thousands of renderings, families, children, Jason running, crying, reacting, freezing. Every emotional pattern documented and remodeled. In the center, a holographic render of Jason, age 14. Heart rate synced. Scenario cycling. Screen above, red. Stratton flagged. Adaptive model number 7. Success rate, 93%. They weren't watching him. They were training him. I copied the whole directory, then smashed the terminal with my elbow twice. Back in the core room, we were at 82%. Go live, Nate called. He hit execute. The signal bounced across 400 nodes, darknet drops, university vaults, 3 whistle servers under multiple country codes. Then the alarm hit. Red lights. System spike. 3 guards approached from the west hall. I neutralized one. Sarah disarmed the second. The third went for the alarm. Nate tripped the circuit breaker. The hallway went dark. We vanished. 2 minutes to mirror wipe, Nate said. If we don't wipe the redundancy buffers, they can nuke the leak. I tossed Sarah the drive. Get this to Jason. What about you? I've got the fuse. I moved fast. Dropped 4 shaped charges on the tower cores. Time delay, 45 seconds. I got ambushed in the hallway by a heavy, bigger, trained. We grappled hard, close quarters, concrete and bone. He got me to the ground, forearm to throat. Then Sarah appeared, fire extinguisher swing, back of the skull. He dropped. You followed me. If they had my kid in those servers, I wouldn't leave either. We ran. Explosions chased us up the shaft like heat-seeking ghosts. Concrete shook. Lights cracked. Systems failed. Back in the van, Jason opened the drive. Is this it? I nodded. All of it. He hit enter. Nate confirmed the sync. It's live. The whole world's watching now. We sat in silence. No cheering. Just the weight lifting off our ribs. An hour later, the first news site picked it up. 3 more followed. By noon, everyone. The leak included, Phase 5 schematics, Safe Start's shadow contracts, Jason's adaptive model, Karen's audio clips, HOA emails, Una's network maps, Dennis's confession. People didn't react. They exploded. Parents, teachers, veterans, news anchors, cracking on air. One anchor couldn't finish reading Jason's flag score out loud. Another pulled his earpiece and said, I'm done pretending this isn't evil. Karen tried to vanish, but she was already a meme. Her boardroom. "You're not stable, John." It went viral. Graffiti, hashtags, stickers on mailboxes. Jason watched it all. He didn't smile. Didn't flinch. Just said, "Now they know what they did." The system didn't fall in one day, but its mass cracked. Underneath it wasn't order, it was obedience. Manufactured, measured, broken. But Jason's model wasn't the only one. And the files we recovered only covered District 4C, which means somewhere out there another family's being flagged, and next time, they might not have someone like me. So I'm staying ready, because I don't protect just my son anymore. I protect the blueprint. It's been 6 days since the leak. The neighborhood looks the same, sprinklers fire at 6 a.m., kids bike past the corner store, mail still arrives late. But now it feels different, because now they know. Jason doesn't flinch when the doorbell rings anymore. He checks it calmly, sometimes even answers it. Sarah sleeps longer now, still keeps the bat by the bed, but she hasn't touched it in 3 days. We don't talk about the core, not directly, but it's in everything. When Jason asks for space, I give it. When I ask him where he's going, he tells me. No fights. No fear. Just mutual permission. And that's something you can't manufacture with rules. That's called trust. Nate's gone full ghost. Moved to Seattle. New rig, new aliases. Still sends updates. The last one just said, restructured safe start. Changed names. Same blueprints. Watch the schools next. I told him I'd be watching more than that. Dennis vanished. No charges. No footage. No whispers. Almost like someone higher up decided he'd served his purpose and then deleted him. Karen gave one interview. It ran for 7 minutes before they cut the feed. They blamed technical difficulties. I call it mercy. But this story? It was never hers. It was Jason's. His footage is still out there, thousands of clips, millions of eyes. Comments off for his sanity. He doesn't watch most of it. Just one. The HOA board meeting. Karen's face when the vote was called. He watches it on repeat. Sometimes not for revenge. Just to remember that truth can win. Last night, we sat in the garage. Same place I used to store medals no one asked about. He asked, "Do you think I'll ever be normal?" I answered, "Do you want to be?" He thought about it, then shook his head. "I want to be ready." And that was the moment I knew. I didn't lose myself saving him. But I had to burn the parts that couldn't carry peace. Because protection isn't about hiding your child from the storm. It's about teaching them how to move inside it and never lose their name. So here we are. No medals. No headlines. Just one house, one family, still here. And if you're hearing this, if you've seen what they built, then you know they failed. Because they trained me for war, but they forgot what happens when soldiers come home angry. And this time, they picked the wrong neighborhood.